with my good friend, Janine Marrone. And we're going to talk about the impact of abortion when we're evangelizing. We're connecting these two groups. Janine's from a group called Support After Abortion. And of course, St. Paul Street Evangelization has hundreds of teams and thousands of evangelists out there talking to people on the street. So this seems like a great marriage. And that's why I brought Janine on. Janine, how are you? And welcome.
Thank you. And it's nice being here, Beth. I don't remember the last time we were together, but when I was looking to get onto the podcast, I saw an email from you back in November of 19. And you may recall that's when we hosted 100 people, mostly Legion of Mary, at Our Lady of Special Help Retreat Center. So I am no foreigner, if you will, or no stranger to street evangelization and the work of St. Paul Street Evangelization. By the way, I also have, over the years, probably distributed 5,000 of these wonderful medals.
Yes, that's amazing. Wear it and share it, right?
That's great. That's our motto. Wear it to share it. Yes.
Janine, you have been a wonderful supporter in many ways, through prayer, through your financial help, through supporting us by buying our stuff from the store. So it's just a pleasure. But when you're not doing evangelization, you have this other beautiful apostolate, this ministry for Support After Abortion, which I think you're the founder of. It's kind of a new ministry. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I guess I'm kind of, when I got into pro-life work, I thought I'd leave my corporate world behind, but sometimes the entrepreneurial piece is in your DNA. So that comes with the founder piece. I'm a big idea person. I love marketing things. That's and all of that is evangelization, of course. I started in Florida anyway. Now it's even beyond that. Something called Luncheons for Life in 2013. And through that, I became a very active advocate in the pro-life industry. One of the things that I learned early on as a newbie in pro-life was that there was more than one victim in an abortion. There are moms and dads and siblings and grandparents that are impacted by abortion. There's often coercion involved. There's a lot of complicated circumstances for which I came to learn that abortion is often a symptom of these very complicated, unresolved hurts and wounds in people's lives. But as such, we were able to get Project Rachel in our diocese. And over the years since then, and I think that was maybe more like 2014 or 2015, my analytical mind is saying we have a myriad of curriculum or healing programs, but it doesn't seem like very many people go to them. So at the end of 2016, I convened or got together with our pregnancy centers locally here in Southwest Florida. I live in Southwest Florida. And we talked about my philanthropic self underwriting a position to inventory all of the healing programs that were there. And perhaps we could create some kind of central intake like you see in the 211 network. Many geographies have 211. That's where if you're hungry, homeless, all needing social services, you call 211. They hear your needs and then they direct you to the place that can help. So that was my vision at the time. So in early 2017, one of the pregnancy centers stepped up and hired somebody to do it part-time, to do this inventorying. That woman, Karen Barbito, is still with Support After Abortion. So it incubated for 3 years in the pregnancy center. I call it the discovery phase. That's where you learn everything there is about the topic that you're working with. And usually when you do that, like any good planning methodology, or searching any current situation, what you need to do next will fall out of it. Simultaneously, we also commissioned consumer research on abortion. Actually, and you and I have talked about this, we did it under the umbrella of reproductive loss. Right. Thinking that perhaps the abortion word would not be welcoming to have anyone talk to interviewers on a telephone, or as it's done now too, also in panels on the internet. So we learned a lot about not only abortion, but miscarriage and the stigma, how our society has stigmatized both. and we are not particularly sensitive. I mean, I'm just speaking about miscarriage for a second. How often do you hear, oh, there must have been something wrong with the baby, or you did something wrong, or you'll have another. I mean, we don't say we don't recognize it as a loss, and sometimes we look at it as a blessing, and that's not the case. It's a definite loss to the parents, and that same goes with abortion. So that was the onset, the background, and then in late last year, or actually it was 2019 now, late in 2019, when I went to the pregnancy center and said, I like to continue to underwrite the program, not thinking that we would, not thinking that we would become our own 501c3. But basically what the pregnancy center subsection of the board said is that this is too big for us. We're not doing support after abortion any justice. It needs to be its own entity. So as time marched on, and on April 1 of 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic, we became our own 501c3.
Wow. So I see all this that's going on behind the scenes just to make this new little organization. And I love the connection with we have 911 for emergencies, 211 for social situations. And now you want to be that kind of thing if anyone's having issues with abortions, reproductive loss and such. What a beautiful, beautiful vision. And it takes a while to get it all through there. And then you have that research where you learned so much. I went to your website. I love it, Support After Abortion. And I loved your mission. It says, to end the demand for abortion through healing people impacted by abortion. And you spoke a little bit about that. What does it mean to be impacted by abortion? I know we all are corporately. So how are we corporately impacted by abortion? What are some of the things?
Well, I mean, from just a social service environment, we know so much about the downstream impacts on the individual. There are health impacts of being able to carry another baby to term, premature births, higher degree of miscarriage. There are other health issues relative to cancer. There's a more likelihood of unemployment, underemployment. To be able to bond with future children, to be able to even have relationships. So unresolved loss is not necessarily a good thing. Unhealed or disenfranchised loss in any circumstances of pregnancy loss does not produce, in general, good results. Many people suffer terribly. What we learned from the research is, in fact, there's quite a bit we learned, but we did ask we talked to 3,000 women. 400 of them had been impacted directly by an abortion. Another group of people knew people with abortion, but I'm going to speak about abortion specifically. 9 out of 10 women, when asked where to go for healing, did not know where. So we have a branding situation, even though we have 200 curriculum, at least 200 healing curriculum in the United States alone. So that's a big, and I'm going to call it a problem. I normally would say opportunity, but it is an opportunity as well. We learned that the women in this survey, we're about to do a men's survey in the first quarter, but that they're not going to church. When asked if they're going to religious services, 80% said rarely or never. When asked the question of what kind of healing that you'd like, 83% said anonymous was important. Most of our healing is not necessarily anonymous. It's in retreat-based settings, and you're with other people. So we have some opportunities within just the curriculum to offer more of an options-based approach. So getting back to what Support After Abortion is, we're a bit of like a think tank or a Shark Tank, because we do, I'll call them not experimental programs. We do our own program development for healing, all on the internet. But mostly what we want to do is to be the catalyst for the healing industry by doing 3 C's. And those C's are inspiring compassion, and podcasts like this are part of that. In the pro-life movement, we don't have enough compassion for those that have been impacted by abortion. We are often judgmental. We understand the gravity and the severity of the sin, and we don't focus enough on mercy and forgiveness, or forgiveness and mercy. We need to radically love people that have been wounded by abortion decisions for the purposes of breaking that cycle of failure. 50% of the abortions that are had in the United States are on women who have already had one.
Wow.
So the need for this healing and the need to inspire compassion is paramount, as a first step. The second step is then to create in this fragmented industry where there's all of these silos of activity going on, collaboration and cooperation, for the purpose of, bottom line, is to build capacity for healing. And so that's our 3 C's, and largely, I mean, we're really in all 3 places. But when you're starting out on a mission like this, the need to elevate the conversation, another C, is so important.
So building the compassion, part of it is just understanding what's going on. The sheer number of abortions. I mean, what is the number up to now? Do you know?
It's 60 million in the United States alone. We're under 1 million abortions. Not quite understanding, again, now, as you know, the surgical abortions have been around for however many years, and at least legally for almost 48 years now this month. But now there's an emergence of something called a chemical abortion or a medical abortion. It's got a lot of names. It's a 2-pill process, the RU486. Some will say that a third, if not more, of all the abortions are done at home through a chemical abortion.
Are those counted, or when they count the 1 million a year?
I would think, because Planned Parenthood and others are very good about it. I'd say Planned Parenthood reports statistics. The other ones not necessarily. So it could be even more. And anything that you can get by, and as you know, things can be gotten by mail. It's a very complicated situation. But yes, 60 million, and they all had parents and grandparents, and the person that drove the woman to the abortion facility, and so on and so forth.
That's just insidious, by mail. I mean, how this woman that is, whatever the situation is, she's there hiding by mail, no one to support her. I was really impacted by one of your podcasts where Carolyn, or one of the women, she gave her testimony and she explained all of these the impact of her abortion and all of the things that happened to her, and the isolation. And I love that one of your C's is compassion. That's what you got to start. You got to have compassion for what's going on. And we need to know that through education and awareness, because I've been in the pro-life movement on the fringes of it for a long time. And just listening to that one testimony, I'm like, I never realized it was as bad as it was. I never realized we have so many walking wounded. And that's when I think about our evangelists. How many of the people that I talk to 1,000 people in a year easily. How many of those people are, walking wounded? They were impacted by abortion in some way, and I don't really know. And maybe that's why they're away from the church. You said so many are away from the church, and we're trying to get people back in right relationship with our Lord, back there, so that they can feel God's mercy and know that they're loved despite whatever they've done.
So maybe that's where I come in with another statistic. 1 out of 4 women in the United States will have an abortion by the time they're 45. So the likelihood that we, wherever we go, whether it's the grocery store or it's a doctor's office or wherever, we have to really be aware of the fact that the impact of the abortion decision is there. And I can't remember which one of the pioneers. There's many great pioneers of the healing movement over the years, and I hope I get this right, but I think it was Teresa Burke that was, as a therapist, she was in a anorexia group, and what she found out behind the scenes was most of the women in that group had an abortion. So you don't know if, you could be with another type of wound or whatever it is, or an addiction or something like that, and not really fully understand that it was the abortion was one of the causes for that wound. And I think that for this group that we're talking to here, I'd like to make a bunch of suggestions. The first one is to be aware of the likelihood that the people that you're meeting have been impacted by an abortion, to have that level of sensitivity. And that often when people are and we know this, when people don't want to come back to church, they say, well, it's because of the abuse scandal, or it's this, that, or the other reason. I would offer to say that is just a mask for the reality of what it is. And we know moral decisions are often the reasons why people don't go to church. And this group is not. I mean, I'm telling you, they're rarely, if ever, going to church. And that's Catholics and non-Catholics, as we're not just talking about Catholics. So that's the first thing. The other thing is to really listen, and don't jump to the, and I think you gave me the mother-in-law survey on this when you asked some of your team members. They said, oh, I'd send them right to confession. I am a revert to Catholicism 15 years ago. It took me 3 years before I went to confession. So
you got back to church?
Yeah.
And then 3 years later, you got to confession?
Correct.
Okay.
So imagine putting in, and I have not been directly impacted by abortion. I have my own sins, but that was not necessarily, that was not one of them. But the moral of the story is we I go to confession now every 2 weeks, but that wasn't the way it was then. Mm-hmm. And so that is not necessarily the first step. And I want everyone to think about Jesus with the woman, with the Samaritan, the woman Samaritan at the well. Oh, yes. He didn't have a catechism book that he was like, look at this, or he wasn't saying, don't you know I'm God? No. What did he do with the woman at the well? He created relationship. Mm-hmm. That's the key to any evangelization, and particularly this one. So meeting people where they are. The other thing that I recommend is that those that are watching this, go to the supportafterabortion.com website and view some of those. We have archived many of, in fact, all of our Facebook Lives that we've done over the past year. And there's our testimonials from people like Carolyn. And Carolyn is part of our team. And she will she'll tell you exactly what she went through. And so, and I think that's really important. If you haven't seen Unplanned, watch Unplanned. And in the case of Abby Johnson, who's the star, or who was the star was an actress, but the subject of that movie, she had both a surgical and a chemical abortion, and it will give you a sense of the trauma that can cause. And I guess finally, the more you can do to educate yourself on this topic, the better. But to refer to us is a good idea, because we will go through an intake. We will find out where a client is. And by the way, this is not just a women-only impact. Men are impacted too, unfortunately, but there are even less that we know, and less programs that are designed for men in healing.
That's great. That's a great synopsis. So if we are meeting people on the street, and 1 out of 4 women will have an abortion before they're 40, and all of those women have mothers, sons, brothers, sisters, girlfriends, family around them, many people are impacted, and they aren't going to necessarily come out and say it. I was really shocked. And the one testimony I listened to, where the woman, she said she had been past her abortion, she had converted, she's back in the church, she's doing, everything's going well. And someone said, well, maybe you should get some healing. And she goes, oh, I don't need healing. I'm fine. She was denying it even then. So the separation, or the way you detach from that sin, I guess that made sense to me, but I didn't realize it. So when we're talking to people, they aren't going to necessarily say, oh, yes, I've been impacted and I really need healing for this abortion. They're going to be throwing all kinds of other things at us. And it's, by listening to their story, by listening, and with the Holy Spirit, that's the other thing is, and I've done this a million times, and perhaps you've had this experience too. I'm praying with somebody, or I'm talking to someone on the street, I'm evangelizing, and the Holy Spirit will prompt me to ask certain questions. And, I wouldn't just go out asking everyone, have you been impacted by abortion? But you may get that sense and be able to gently, as an evangelist, gently walk them through and keep listening and just let them know about God's love. And I love that you said, one of the first things to say to someone is, I'm sorry for your loss. I'm sorry for your loss. So, yeah, we have a listener here that's listening on us live, and she said unplanned opened her eyes to what was going on, because it's just, we don't want to think about abortion. We don't want to be right there. We want it to be distant from us because it's so ugly. And I think that's part of the devil's workshop, is to keep it away.
And what I was going to mention too, when unresolved loss often manifests itself in anger. Anger is a reaction to that. And in the case of men, it's also shows itself in reckless behavior. So you'd be surprised, the road rage that you see on our interstates, or not even on our interstates, and in our just our highways and byways. I often think to myself, I pray for them, and I wonder if this is, one of the symptoms of the manifestation of an unresolved, of grief that's unresolved. Yeah. So the being sorry for somebody's loss is the most compassionate thing that you can say. And I think one of the other things that I'm really be cautious of being a street evangelization, that this isn't abortion healing is not one and done. There's no one size fits all, and it's not one and done. And evangelization isn't one and done either. As we know, just planting the seed or getting someone to acknowledge that loss may be their first step in healing, for which you will never know about on this side of earth, on this side of eternity. So I think that's one of the most important things that you can do. And then again, it's like I do, I'm prone to this, but I pray for an end to abortion, obviously, and to the demand for abortion, because it's not about just changing a law. Laws don't change hearts. Hearts change laws. So, and then I pray for those that have been impacted by abortion to seek reconciliation and healing. And then finally, I pray for those that are in abortion facilities for their conversion. But I think prayer on this topic is so incredibly important. And one of the things that Support After Abortion put together, and if I can say this, Beth, because I sent you a box of these.
Oh, good. I was going to mention it. Thank you.
Okay. We worked with Word Among Us. The Word Among Us is all of us know what that is, the liturgical accompaniment to the Mass, a Catholic publisher. It's called Support After Abortion: Keys to Hope and Healing. And it does not promote a strong gospel message. It promotes a healing message, meeting where we believe people are. And I recommend it for our viewers to read this, because it's a great primer, very, 101, basic version of a healing process. And then once people go into the healing process, it never ends. And, and that's then that's why I say there is no one and done, and there's no one size fits all. And you'll hear that from many people who have big proponents of Project Rachel or Rachel Centers or Surrender the Secret or Surrendering the Secret. Everyone has their own, potato or potato, tomato or tomato. Everyone has a different appetite for their healing and then where they begin. But I strongly recommend this. And I think, Beth, you have some level of distribution on this.
Yes, we have a bunch. It is not in our store on St. Paul Street Evangelization right now. But if you could send me an email, beth@stpaulse.com, I can make sure that you get one. Or if you call the office and ask, we can make sure that we can figure out how to get you one. But thank you for that. So we have a bunch of them there. And that book itself it walks you through the road of healing. Yeah. So
it's the woman at the well. It's just it's forming that relationship that then invites someone into the faith. But we have to start somewhere, because it's not an all or nothing thing in evangelization either. Again, I think we have to think about that process of planting the seeds of awareness and conversation, and not necessarily I mean, yeah, we'd all love to send everybody to a confessional, but how often does that happen? It just doesn't work that way.
Well, it sometimes does, but quite often you just have to have it. You just have to, I don't know, you have to be, but you have to listen and see where someone are. I love how you said, meet them where they are, meet them where they are. Okay. Our evangelists, this is our model of evangelization at St. Paul Street evangelization, is listen, befriend, proclaim, invite. And we know we go as far as we can at any particular time. So you don't always get people all the way there, like you said. You don't always get people all the way there. Janine, if there is someone listening right now, I don't know how long our Facebook Live link stays live, but if there is someone listening right now that is suffering from the impact of abortion, is there something you'd like just to say to them?
Well, there is hope and healing. That's number one. I would refer to you to supportafterabortion.com website. And we also have a hotline, which is 844-289-HOPE, which is 4673. And I'll repeat that again, 844-289-4673. For if you are still not completely healed and you feel compelled, I would also pick up the phone and call that, or go to the website. For others who may be interested in learning how to be counselors or more on the subject, again, going to the website is a very good thing. And I think that's the gist of it. Beth, did I miss anything?
No, that's good. That's good. I just wanted to make sure if anyone is listening out there that they know that there is help for them. But I just wanted to make sure we got that in there.
Well, it's funny because when Abby Johnson put together the Obviously Unplanned, she had a couple of hotlines there were text lines at the end of that movie. And one was for her ministry of, and then there were none. And then one was ours. So we got over 600 contacts from that movie of people who did not expect the unintended consequence of what that movie did in their hearts. So we do know it's so important to talk about this. We can't be afraid. We don't need to hide behind anything. It is not an unpardonable sin. And I think Pope Francis in 2016 reinforced that. There are still people that believe that you need to go to the Pope to have the abortion sin forgiven, and that's not true. All priests have that authority. As on the one hand, I'm saying, that's not the first place you want to go. On the other hand, I'm saying you can go there. You don't have to go to your bishop for some special dispensation.
Right.
So, so part of it is killing the myths and the untruths. And I'm not saying everyone has issue after abortion, but more than you think, and more than our popular culture leads us to believe. And we really want to radically love people back into the church, and by acknowledging woundedness in the most appropriate way.
That's so true. I love how you said that. Not everybody, but we found most, or we found many. And sometimes that's what you have to say, because people are in denial.
Yes.
And I've had people that have talked about abortion, and it's like, oh, I'm fine, or it wasn't a big deal. And we have one of our evangelists who used to run a pregnancy center, and that's how she would talk to people. She'd say, well, maybe not everybody. And she had an abortion herself when she was young. She goes, maybe not everybody, but let me tell you about my experience and why I feel this way. And maybe we share some of those experiences as a way to open up. So you don't want to say, I know that you are suffering, so you better, you don't want to be like that.
That's it. Well, and you know what? And the other thing too is the nomenclature. We're talking directly about abortion, and I think that's fine. I mean, I definitely like that, but we can always use terms like pregnancy loss or reproductive loss, and that becomes a kind of a softer way of addressing that loss, and that may invite a conversation as well.
That's a great thing. A great way to say it. The language, like you said, is so important. I'm sorry for your loss. You're suffering. There's trauma associated with reproductive loss. Mm-hmm. Those kinds of words, because you don't know what happens. So many people when they were young, they were coerced. I even talked to a woman once who was literally tied to a table, and she just carries so much with her. You don't know. I always tell people, you can never blame the mom. You don't know what's happening. And just that first C, compassion, compassion, compassion. That's where we start. I
And
think
also
I
recognize that
read something that you wrote. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and also men are victims too. It's not
Yes.
not
Yes.
just women. There's enough pain on this subject to go around.
I read something you wrote once, and you said that what you need to do is listen, and then listen, and then listen some more. And that's how our model goes. You have to first start with where they are and let them unload. We talk with people with wounds from all different things. And maybe some of it is connected to an abortion, maybe more than we realize. But it's true. You have to let them, if you can build a relationship with somebody and you can let them unload and let it, and know that they're safe to respond, to tell you their story. And then you can go from there, and you aren't just waiting to pounce on them with you get to confession, or a wagging finger of some sort. So, yeah. Talked about language, compassion. You can't have an agenda. Get them back on your terms. You can't outrun the Holy Spirit, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think we've covered pretty much all the different things I was thinking of. Is there anything else you would like to say to our evangelists or anyone?
I admire what you do. I mean, that's just, there's no doubt about it. And I think that our world needs more people that are willing to just go out on the streets and sit on a park bench. Beth, I can do my evangelization. I'm not really as good as doing it inside a park and that kind of thing. I'm not as good on the cold calling as I need a warm lead. But I admire everything that y'all do, and I can't say enough about the wear it and share it either. I know this is off the topic of abortion, but all of these things that we wear are bumper stickers, and they're convicting somebody of something. And I talked about, through Legion of Mary giving away 5,000 of these. And I can't tell you how often someone will say, my grandmother had one of those, or, whatever. And then we say, would you like it? And it would be almost like we gave them a gold chain. And we know how much these cost, but they are enduring. They definitely they're very durable, and the perceived value is infinite. So, I'd say not to be afraid to continue to wear our Blessed Mother and our St. Benedict's crosses they're so valuable to so many people.
That's so true. And it's like a little bumper sticker. I love that. And you're a safe person for someone to come up to. Sometimes they see that, it's like, oh, okay. When I usually give mine away to moms. Mom, you deserve a medal, when she's rushing with her little ones or something. But it does open up conversations, and Our Lady is involved. Maximilian Kolbe called the miraculous medal the silver bullet. And it's a beautiful thing to have and to give away and to share with others. We have them. I mean, it's like $15 to buy 100 of them at our store, and they're good quality. And you can do that. Be a little evangelist on your own. All right. Well, I think we've covered everything, and I'm so grateful that you took the time to join us. Support After Abortion is the website. That beautiful book. Send me an email for that, and Beth at stpaulse.com.
It's called The Keys to Hope and Healing.
What say it again? The name of it?
The Keys to Hope and Healing.
Keys to Hope and Healing, which can help you.
Produce this in cooperation with Support After Abortion. They heard the results of the survey, and they didn't blink an eye to produce something that was not so gospel forward. And that's not to say, our experience, by the way, is that when we have to start in a neutral position with people, they more often than not go back to the religion from which they came.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing greater to any evangelist than that.
That's right. That's right. All right. Well, that sounds great. And thank you all for listening. It's our first time doing this on Facebook Live. I hope all the communication things work great. Thank you to our listeners. I don't know if there's any more questions. I was trying to get questions from other people. We have one, David called and said, thanks, Janine. Thanks for your great mission. So that came through.
And great job, Beth. You have to read the last part of that.
Oh, yeah, you're right. It does say that too.
I love the format. I think you should do this more often.
All right. Well, give us a thumbs up in the listening thing, and we'll try this the next time we record our podcast. This podcast will be available later on this Facebook page, but also on our website, streetevangelization.com. You can click under media and see the different podcasts we've had. We've talked to many people, and it's all about evangelizing, how to get people back into relationship with the Lord. God bless you all. Thank you so much.
Amen.